So like I said, learning to forgive is quite important, not only for our happiness in this life, but also for our spiritual progress.
Jadi belajar cara memaafkan itu penting ya, bukan hanya untuk kebahagiaan kita, tapi ada praktek spiritual kita bisa maju berkembang.
You never heard of an angry Buddha, did you?
Anda belum pernah dengar Buddha marah ya?
Yeah.
Maksudnya bukan Buddha lagi marah, tapi kita ada Buddha kasih sayang, karena Buddha marah.
One of the qualities that makes the Buddha so special is that he has equanimity towards all beings. He's free of bias, attachment, and anger.
Ya, jadi salah satu kualitas Buddha itu adalah Buddha punya keseimbangan ya, kepada siapapun juga. Dia telah bebas dari kemarahan, dari bias, dan dari kebodohan.
But when we hold grudges against other people, we definitely have bias, attachment, and anger, don't we?
Dan jika kita kesal, memendam dendam kepada orang lain, tentu saja ya kita punya pembiasan, kemelekatan dan kemarahan kepada orang lain.
Okay. So I define forgiveness as letting go of my own anger.
Arti memaafkan bagi saya adalah melepaskan kemarahan saya.
So forgiving somebody does not mean what they did was okay.
Memaafkan seseorang bukan berarti perbuatan mereka itu oke-oke aja, nggak apa-apa.
It doesn't mean that I'm going to forget what they did because I have to remember it and learn.
Itu juga tidak berarti saya lupakan. Saya akan ingat untuk saya mulai.
But it means that I'm going to stop being angry about it.
Artinya saya akan berhenti marah kepada perbuatan tersebut.
Because my anger destroys me.
Mengapa? Karena kemarahan saya menghancurkan saya.
Yeah. We often think that if we remain angry at somebody, that our anger is in some way punishing them and making them suffer for what they did to us.
Kita selalu percaya bahwa ketika kita marah, ya, kita menghukum, kita menghukum orang tersebut, kita menghancurkan orang itu.
But that's not what happens at all, is it? Because the other person is off doing whatever they're doing, and we're sitting here fuming, you know.
Nggak terjadi ya, kita mau menghukum orang itu, nggak terjadi. Orang itu udah tak pergi kemana, dan kita hidup ya, dengan wajah seperti tadi.
So who's suffering when we don't forgive? Is the other person suffering or are we suffering?
Jadi menderita siapa? Orang itu atau kita?
Yeah. We're the ones suffering, aren't we?
Betul nggak? Yang menderita siapa?
Yeah.
Kita means we.
Yeah. So forgiving somebody isn't something we do for the other person, it's something we do for ourselves.
Jadi memaafkan seseorang bukan untuk orang itu, tapi buat diri kita sendiri.
Okay. Now, lots of times we would appreciate at least if the other person apologized before we forgave them.
Ya, kita seringnya sedikit memaafkan orang sebelum mereka meminta maaf kepada kita.
In other words, we make our forgiveness contingent on their first apologizing.
Artinya gini, kita maafkan selama orang itu minta maaf sama kita.
Okay. Now, what happens when we do that?
Lalu akibatnya apa dengan sikap kita tersebut?
Yeah. We give away our power. We make ourselves into a victim. Because
Kita berikan kekuatan kita kepada orang itu, membuat kita menjadi korban.
I'm saying, I'm going to remain angry until you apologize. But can I make you apologize? No.
Karena secara tidak langsung kita mengingat pesan, saya akan memaafkan Anda sampai Anda minta maaf. Tapi persoalannya, kapan orang itu minta maaf? Nggak pernah ya.
Right? So holding out and waiting for an apology is just inflicting more suffering on ourselves.
Jadi menunggu orang yang minta maaf membuat kita semakin menderita.
Okay. Now, I know that sometimes I want the person to apologize or at least acknowledge how awful what they did was and how much I suffered because of what they did.
Saya sering ingin orang itu minta maaf. Paling tidak mereka ngaku mereka salah. Mereka telah membuat saya susah. Saya mau mereka berkata seperti itu.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sweet, innocent, wonderful me, and this person did such awful things. You can't believe what they did to me.
Dan kita sering bilang, saya orang baik ya. Dan kemudian kebayang gak sih apa yang mereka lakukan kepada saya?
Yeah. And any reasonable person would be furious with this other person for what they did.
Dan orang biasa akan kesal marah atas perbuatan orang itu.
Yeah, so the least he could do is, come on, acknowledge what a jerk he was.
Paling tidak orang itu harus ngaku. Ya, orang itu rasa diri.
Acknowledge how much he hurt me.
Ya, dia telah menyakiti aku.
Yeah. In fact, my ideal vision of what should happen is he should come crawling up the central aisle here on his hands and knees, saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what I did to you. It's all my fault. Please forgive me."
Jadi bayangan saya, maunya saya, orang itu dari belakang jalan merangkak atau merangkak dengan kedua lututnya, lalu akan membungkuk hormat dan mohon maaf. Itu salah saya minta maaf.
No, you don't have it right. He's got to be on the verge of tears. He so much wants me to forgive him because he's so sorry for what he did to me. So sorry. There, you got it. Yeah, and it should, yeah, good. Then also, bring some flowers, bring some chocolate. Yeah.
Bawain bunga, bawain coklat.
Yeah. Okay, but when is he going to do that?
Kapan orang itu akan melakukan?
Yeah.
Supaya kita bayangkan.
When is the other person going to crawl up like that and apologize to me?
Kapan orang tersebut akan merangkak dan minta maaf?
Never. Never, ever, ever. Yeah. So I need to just put that down and work on letting go of my own anger.
Jadi saya akan lepaskan bayangan saya itu, harapan saya itu, dan saya akan urus kemarahan saya.
Yeah. Because in fact, it doesn't matter if he apologizes or not.
Karena nggak penting, dia minta maaf atau enggak sama diri. Nggak penting ya, betul.
Oh, you don't believe me. You're still holding out for the apology, huh?
Saya percaya. Orang itu masih harus merangkak.
But when you think of it, for me stopping to be angry, this is something that happens within me. I don't need to wait for the other person to apologize.
Jadi menghentikan kemarahan itu berurusan dengan diri saya. Saya tidak perlu tunggu orang lain minta maaf.
Yeah. Basically, I need to get tired of suffering.
Kenapa? Karena pada dasarnya saya sudah capek hidup menderita.
Okay. Then I let go of my anger, which is what forgiveness is.
Lalu saya lepaskan kemarahan saya, itulah makna memaafkan.
Okay. I may not and forgiving the person doesn't mean that the relationship goes back to exactly the same way it was before.
Ya, memaafkan itu bukan berarti hubungan kita akan sama persis sebelum kejadiannya.
Yeah, something has changed.
Ada sesuatu telah berubah.
Yeah. So we need to work on the relationship and to develop trust again.
Dan hubungan kita harus kita urus, ya, perbaiki sampai kita bisa ada di tingkat kepercayaan yang sama.
Yeah. And I've learned that maybe I shouldn't expect this other person to be perfect.
Dan kita belajar untuk tidak berharap orang itu sempurna.
Maybe part of the problem was that I expected them to be perfect.
Mungkin salah satu masalahnya adalah karena saya yang berharap dia sempurna.
Yeah. And when we look and ask ourselves, what's my definition of perfect?
Kemudian kita sadar apa makna kesempurnaan untuk saya.
It means that the other person does whatever I want them to do at exactly the moment I want them to do it.
Maknanya kesempurnaan adalah saya mau orang itu melakukan persis seperti yang mau, apa yang saya mau, kapan saya mau.
When is that ever going to happen?
Kapan itu akan terjadi?
Yeah? So your mother or father or sister or brother or husband or wife or child ever going to do exactly what you want them to do when, or your boss, you know, when you want them to do it? No.
Suami istri, saudara kandung, anak-anak, bos Anda, kapan mereka akan melakukan persis seperti yang kita mau, kapan ketika kita mau.
So I need to let go of that expectation.
Oleh sebab itu, saya perlu lepaskan harapan tersebut.
Yeah, and accept this person for who they are.
Dan menerima orang ini apa adanya.
Yeah, even if they're not what I want them to be.
Meskipun orang itu tidak seperti yang saya mau.
Yeah, and that's hard.
Itu sulit, itu berat.
Yeah, but it's the only way to have harmony.
Tapi itu satu-satunya cara ya, agar kita bisa punya keharmonisan.
Okay. So forgiveness is important on a personal level when there's been conflict with other people in our lives.
Jadi memaafkan itu bagus untuk di hubungan pribadi ketika kita punya masalah dalam hidup kita, konflik dengan orang lain.
It's also important on a group level, on an international level.
Juga penting ya di tingkat kelompok, di tingkat internasional juga.
Okay. Because lots of times, you know, one group in society harms another group and that group harms them back, you know, and unless there's some forgiveness in there, then we're going to pass down hatred to the future generations.
Ya, karena biasanya jika ada satu kelompok bertikai dengan kelompok lain, dan ini tidak diselesaikan, dan biasanya akan diturunkan, diwariskan kepada generasi berikutnya.
Okay. So you remember when Yugoslavia was falling apart into different, you know, small republics?
Anda ingat ya, dulu ada satu negara besar namanya Yugoslavia, lalu dia pecah menjadi beberapa negara kecil.
Yeah, and there was so much killing going on between different groups.
Dan ada banyak pembunuhan di antara berbagai kelompok.
And that was because people, the groups themselves hadn't forgiven each other for what had happened hundreds of years ago.
Kenapa bisa? Karena tiap kelompok itu belum memaafkan atas sesuatu yang terjadi ratusan tahun yang lalu.
So if we hold on to grudges on a societal level about what one group did to my group, you know, even before I was born, you know, and then we teach that to our children. Oh, these other people, they're bad, they're negative, they kill us. Then we're teaching our children to hate, and we're perpetuating conflict.
Ya, dan bayangin ketika permasalahan antara dua kelompok ini tidak pernah selesai, tidak pernah ada saling memaafkan. Jadinya satu kelompok itu akan mengajarkan anak-anaknya. Ini yang dulu mereka lakukan kepada kita. Sehingga anak-anak itu dari kecil itu diajarkan untuk membenci, ya, dan akhirnya akan malah mendorong terjadinya konflik.
So we all know that Nelson Mandela just passed away, and there was so much grieving in the world.
Anda tahu ya? Anda kenal nggak Nelson Mandela? Baru meninggal dan dunia berduka.
And why was he beloved so much? It's because he taught a whole society how to forgive each other.
Kenapa ia begitu dikenal dan dicintai? Karena ia mengajarkan masyarakatnya untuk memaafkan sesama.
What I find interesting in his life is that when he was younger, he joined a guerrilla group within the ANC. And while he was imprisoned, he realized that violence was not going to bring about the change he wanted.
Ya, saya pelajari bahwa ketika masih kecil, masih muda maksudnya, Nelson Mandela itu bergabung di kelompok perlawanan. Dan ketika Nelson Mandela ditangkap dari penjara, dia belajar bahwa kekerasan tidak akan menyelesaikan apapun.
Okay. So not only did he lead nonviolent resistance against the white dominance, but also once he was elected president, he encouraged people to reconcile instead of for the Africans to take revenge.
Dan kemudian ketika akhirnya dia terpilih menjadi presiden Afrika Selatan, waktu itu dia malah mendorong orang-orang untuk memaafkan dan memperbaiki hubungan dengan orang kulit putih, bukan mengajak mereka untuk balas dendam.
Okay. And his doing so saved hundreds or thousands of lives.
Dan dengan begitu dia menyelamatkan ratusan ribu nyawa.
Yeah. At the same time that he was encouraging people, the whites and the blacks, to forgive each other, he was also making sure that what had happened was revealed and spoken about.
Ya, selain mengajak orang saling memaafkan, ya, dia juga mendorong apa yang dulu terjadi itu diungkapkan dan dibahas.
Okay, so he wasn't just saying, oh, let's forget about it and pretend it didn't happen, because he knew that unless it was aired in a peaceful manner, then the true reconciliation couldn't happen.
Jadi bukan cuma bilang lupakan, ya, dan kita lupakan, tapi dia yakin bahwa kecuali hal ini diungkapkan secara jujur, terbuka, maka sulit untuk bisa melakukan rekonsiliasi.
No. So I think this kind of reconciliation and forgiveness in society is very important if we want to live together peacefully.
Rekonsiliasi dan pemaafan ini penting dalam masyarakat jika kita ingin hidup damai.
Okay. Otherwise, whole groups of people carry rancor and anger around with them.
Kalau tidak, kelompok masyarakat itu akan membawa kebencian dan kemarahan bersama mereka.
I taught in Israel for some years, beginning in the late 1990s, taught the Dharma.
Saya mengajar di Israel di akhir tahun 1990-an.
And almost every family in Israel lost relatives during the Holocaust.
Hampir ya ada keluarga ya di Israel itu kehilangan anggota keluarganya pada saat pembantaian.
So this was constantly in their mind, that people had tried to wipe us out, had tried to kill us. Now we have to stand up for ourselves. We have to be angry against those who try and kill us.
Dan ada keyakinan ya bahwa dulu mereka ingin menghancurkan kita, mereka ingin menghapus kita dari tempat ini. Jadi kita harus mencoba untuk berbalik, untuk mengetahui.
Yeah, and if you understand this, then you understand why the Israelis act the way they do towards the Palestinians.
Jadi kalau kita Anda mengerti bahwa sekarang mereka punya kekuatan, Anda akan paham kenapa mereka akan melakukan hal yang orang Israel lakukan sekarang kepada orang Palestina.
I'm not saying what they did is right. I disagree with a lot of their policies, but you can understand why, when there's been hurt and no forgiveness, why this anger perpetuates.
Ya, bukan berarti saya setuju ya dengan kebijakan mereka. Andai saja mereka tahu kenapa kemarahan ini muncul, bagaimana kemarahan ini bisa nantinya membesar.
So, in one meditation, in one of the teachings, people brought this up, and they said, "How can we forgive the Nazis for what they did?"
Di salah satu sesi saya mengajar ada yang bertanya, bagaimana saya memaafkan apa yang telah Nazi lakukan pada saat itu?
Because people, at least in the retreat, were realizing that their hatred, was making them suffer.
Karena orang yang ikut retret pada saat itu sadar kemarahan mereka membuat mereka menderita.
So we did a quite amazing meditation. I led a meditation on Kuan Yin, Chenrezig, the Buddha of Compassion.
Dan mereka melakukan meditasi yang cukup menakjubkan. Saya memimpin mereka melakukan meditasi Kuan Yin, Chenrezig.
And we imagined Kuan Yin in the concentration camps.
Dan kami bayangkan Kuan Yin itu tinggal di kamp-kamp konsentrasi.
Yeah. In the gas chambers, in the crematoriums.
Di ruang gas, ya, orang Yahudi itu masuk ke gas, diracun.
And Kuan Yin was radiating light, purifying everybody in the camps, not only the Poles and the Gypsies and the Jews and the prisoners of war who were suffering, but also the German SS officers who perpetuated the suffering.
Ya, Kuan Yin itu bukan hanya memancarkan cinta kasih, kemudian bukan hanya kepada orang Yahudi, kepada orang Polandia, kepada orang-orang yang disiksa, tapi juga kepada tentara-tentara Nazi Jerman yang membuat mereka menderita.
Okay, so we were purifying both the victims and the perpetrators of the suffering.
Ya, jadi kita memaafkan, yang memberi cinta kasih kepada orang yang menderita.
So as we were doing this visualization of Kuan Yin radiating light, we were also chanting the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, and it was incredibly powerful and very healing for the people there.
Dan sambil kami memancarkan cahaya, kita bacakan nama Om Mani Padme Hum, dan itu sangat menyembuhkan kepada setiap orang yang bersama.
So lots of times when people talk about forgiveness, they say forgive and forget. I agree with the forgiveness part, but not necessarily the forgetting part.
Ketika orang bicara memaafkan, mereka biasanya bilang maafkan, lupakan. Saya setuju dengan yang memaafkan, tapi melupakan saya kurang setuju.
So for this example with the Israelis, if they need to remember what happened and learn from it. And actually the whole planet, all people in every country need to learn from the Holocaust so that we make sure it doesn't happen again.
Untuk orang Israel, mereka bisa renungi, mereka bisa pelajari. Dan untuk kita, seluruh manusia di dunia, kita bisa pelajari dan belajar agar pembantaian seperti itu tidak pernah ada lagi.
Okay, so also in your country there may be groups of people that you feel you need to forgive, or in your own personal lives there may be people that you feel you need to forgive. So I really encourage you to do that.
Di kita juga di Indonesia mungkin ada kelompok tertentu yang perlu kita maafkan, dan secara pribadi ada juga orang yang perlu kita maafkan. Dan saya mendorong Anda untuk melakukan itu.
Because the alternative is suffering yourself through your own anger and teaching your children how to hate. And is that what you want to pass on to your children?
Pilihannya cuma dua, ya. Anda menderita karena kemarahan Anda, atau Anda ajarkan, Anda teruskan dendam ini kepada anak-anak Anda. Pilihannya ada dua.
So how you act towards your parents is setting an example for how your children will act towards you.
Cara kita memperlakukan orang tua kita
and how you treat your brothers and sisters, you are showing your children through example how they should treat each other.
Cara kita memperlakukan saudara kandung kita, demikianlah cara kita menunjukkan kepada anak kita nanti bagaimana mereka memperlakukan saudara kandungnya juga.
Okay. So you need to be careful about this.
Jadi Anda harus hati-hati ya dengan hal ini.
Okay. I know this very well because of my own family.
Saya tahu ini baik. Saya tahu betul hal ini karena keluarga saya.
In my family, whenever there's a big family get-together, making the seating arrangement is so difficult because this one doesn't talk to that one and that one doesn't talk to this one, and these two don't even look at each other. They haven't looked at each other for 20 years, and these ones, you know, hate each other, and they're all blood relatives, you know.
Kalau ngumpul pasien siang gitu ya keluarga besar ngumpul, itu mau makan bareng aja, ngatur tempat duduknya bingung. Yang satu nggak cocok sama ini, yang satu nggak ngomong sama itu ya. Yang ini udah benci dia 20 tahun. Nah, itu keadaannya waktu di keluarga beliau.
Yeah. And I remember being a child, and the extended family had a small piece of land for a summer house. And there were various relatives who had flats on it. And I was told, don't talk to the people in that flat. And I said, why? Aren't they our cousins? And the answer was yes, but they did something a few generations ago, the level of my grandmother's generation. My grandmother, or maybe it was, it must have been my grandmother, her generation, the brothers and sisters quarreled. So as a result, I'm not supposed to talk to those people. This quarrel happened before I was born.
Jadi keluarganya punya sebuah rumah ya, mungkin rumah musim panas buat liburan. Lalu kalau pergi ke sana, beliau dipesankan oleh orang tuanya, jangan pergi ke rumahnya itu ya, jangan ke sana. Kenapa? Karena dulu ya, mungkin zaman nenek beliau itu mereka bertengkar, dan sebuah pertengkaran yang terjadi bahkan sebelum beliau lahir, dan itu diteruskan sampai sekarang.
So that's what the people on my parents' my parents were teaching it to my generation, but they learned it from their parents, how to hate the brothers and sisters.
Dan saya belajar dari orang tua saya seperti itu. Orang tua saya juga belajar dari orang tuanya, ya, bagaimana memperlakukan sama saudara kandungnya.
So at that time when I was a child, on the level of my grandparents' generation, they didn't all talk to each other. But my parents' generation, they talked to each other. But then some time went by, and then pretty soon my aunts and uncles weren't talking to each other.
Ya, di level kakek nenek saya, mereka mungkin punya masalah, turun ke yang generasi keduanya masih ngomong satu sama lain. Tapi nanti ada suatu saat, akhirnya paman atau bibinya sudah musuhan, tidak ngomong lagi.
And then after some time went by, I looked at my generation, and some of the families, again, the brothers and sisters weren't talking to each other.
Dan di generasi saya, ternyata tidak akhirnya. Ada beberapa saudara kami yang juga tidak saling tegur sama.
Yeah. So what I learned from observing this whole mess is that I'm not going to get involved in any of it.
Yang saya lihat adalah, saya amati, saya nggak mau bercampur tentang apa yang telah mereka lakukan.
Yeah, I don't want to hold grudges against any relatives.
Saya tidak mau menyimpan kesal dendam kepada keluarga.
Yeah. Also because the reasons why people held grudges were always such small, petty things.
Dan orang biasa kesal menyimpan dendam itu hal-hal kecil, sedetik dari ini.
But then people are so easily offended that then you make a vow, I am never going to talk to that person again as long as I live.
Karena urusan kecil itu Anda bertekad sumpah palapa, nggak akan ngomong sama dia seumur hidup saya.
Yeah. Then that's one vow you never break.
Dan sumpah Anda itu Anda
Yeah.
kuat ya, nggak pernah Anda langgar.
Yeah. Your marriage vows.
Janji perkawinannya, ya.
The 5 precepts you took in the presence of the Buddha, we can renegotiate those.
Pancasila yang kita ambil di hadapan Buddha, itu bisa dinegosiasi ya.
But when we vow never to talk to somebody else again, we never break it.
Sumpah, nggak pernah ngomong sama orang itu, kita pertahankan.
Yeah.
Nggak pernah kita langgar.
Is that stupid or is that stupid?
Itu bodoh, bego, atau tolong.
Huh? Isn't that one of the most stupid things you've heard us human beings do?
Itu bukan hal yang paling bodoh, bahasa Sundanya pokok ya.
Yeah.
Itu hal yang paling goblok ini yang kita lakukan.
And the people that we say I'm never going to talk to again are usually either relatives or very close friends.
Dan orang itu yang kita bersumpah nggak pernah ngomong, biasanya saudara, maksudnya saudara dalam keluarga atau teman dekat kita.
So what good is doing that do?
Kenapa begitu?
Yeah? Then you grow old and you build up more and more people to hate because more and more people offend you and do things you don't like.
Kita tumbuh menjadi tua dan daftar orang yang kita benci semakin banyak karena mereka tidak melakukan hal yang kita suka.
So I think sometimes when old people are bent over, it's not just because of their bones and muscles, it's because they've piled up so many grudges and so much hatred that it's like concrete on their back, weighing them down.
Jadi kalau kita lihat orang tua yang sudah membungkuk, bukan cuma karena kondisi fisik ya, tapi karena mereka memumpuk, dikumpulin orang-orang yang mereka benci, akhirnya dia menjadi berat seperti beton.
Yeah, is this the way you want to grow old?
Anda mau menjadi tua dengan menjadi seperti itu?
Yeah. Do you want to die hating somebody?
Mau ya meninggal sambil membenci seseorang?
Yeah. So if we don't want to die hating somebody, then we shouldn't live hating them either.
Jadi kalau kita tidak mau meninggal ketika membenci seseorang, kita juga harus hidup tanpa membenci mereka.
Okay. Because we don't know when we're going to die.
Kapan Anda tahu Anda mati? Nggak tahu ya.
Yeah. So don't think I'm going to hate them until right before I die and then I'll forgive them because I don't want to die hating somebody.
Jadi jangan berpikir saya akan benci mereka sampai sesaat sebelum saya meninggal, lalu saya maafkan karena saya tidak mau hidup, saya tidak mau meninggal dengan kebencian.
So I do prison work in the U.S. and one man that I write to, when he was in prison, his mother was furious at what happened. He told me he didn't actually commit what he was in prison for, but anyway, his mother was so mad at him that she stopped talking to him.
Jadi beliau ini juga melakukan kunjungan ke penjara yang bijaksana, dan ada satu pria yang di penjara yang pernah urus juga mengatakan bahwa ibunya benci banget sama dia dan nggak mau ngomong sama anaknya ini. Padahal menurut anaknya dia tidak melakukan kejahatan yang membuat dia di penjara.
Yeah, and the mother made sure that his children didn't talk to him either, and that she kind of told his children that they should hate and resent him.
He is his brother.
No. The person that I'm writing to, his name is Tom, Okay, so his mother was mad at him.
Oh, Tom's mother.
Yeah, and so Tom's mother told Tom's children, you know, don't have anything to do with him.
Ya, jadi ibunya si Tom ini, nama pria Tom, bahkan ibunya memastikan bahwa anak-anaknya Tom ini tidak akan mengurus Tom lagi, tidak bicara sama Tom.
So Tom really wanted to reconcile with his mother. He would write her, he would try and call. She never responded.
Tom ini mau rekonsiliasi berdamai dengan ibunya. Dan dia nulis, dia telepon, tapi ibunya tidak pernah mau menangani.
Okay, so he was in prison for many years, and then one day the chaplain came to his cell and said, "You have a telephone call from your mother."
Dia di penjara lama sekali, dan kemudian satu hari diberitahu ada telepon dari ibu kamu.
So he went to take the call, and his mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and she just had a short while to live.
Nah, kenapa? Karena ibunya ini baru didiagnosa punya penyakit yang berat, dan sisa hidupnya sebentar lagi.
So now that she was actively dying, she wanted to reconcile with her son.
Karena yang sekarang dia mau berdamai dengan anaknya.
So Tom was only too happy, you know, to do that.
Bahagia sekali, senang sekali melakukannya.
And they had maybe 3 conversations, each one 15 minutes, because when you're in prison you can't talk as long as you want to your relatives.
Mereka tidak bisa panjang lebar, ya, mungkin 3 atau 4 kali selama 15 menit. Di penjara kita nggak bisa bebas menelpon.
And then his mother died.
Baru ibunya pun meninggal.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, when he told me about this, on one hand I felt happy that she had called and reconciled with her son. On the other hand, I felt so sad because if she had done that earlier, then for many, many years she and her son could have had a very good relationship before she died.
Ketika saya tahu ini, saya senang karena kedua orang ini telah berdamai. Tapi sekaligus saya sedih. Kalau saja dari dulu mereka berdamai, mereka akan punya hubungan yang baik selama bersama.
Yeah, so that's why I say don't wait, you know, until you're actively dying to forgive people.
Jadi jangan menunggu, ya, sampai napasnya Senin Kamis baru maafin orangnya.
Okay. Also, sometimes we may feel the need to apologize to somebody.
Kadang-kadang, nah kita juga perlu minta maaf sama orang lain.
Yeah. And again, let's not wait until we're about to die to apologize.
Sekali lagi, jangan tunggu sampai kita menjelang kematian baru kita minta maaf.
Yeah, because sometimes death comes quickly, we may not have that chance.
Karena kematian datangnya mendadak, cepat, dan kita tidak punya kesempatan itu.
And apologizing too is something that we do for ourselves because we feel the need to take responsibility for the pain that our actions caused.
Ya, dan kita minta maaf karena kita merasa kita bertanggung jawab atas rasa sakit yang telah kita sebabkan kepada orang itu.
It doesn't mean that we have to feel guilty.
Tapi itu tidak berarti kita harus merasa bersalah.
It just means we need to express our true feelings to the other person, our feeling of regret.
Ya, itu berarti kita sungguh-sungguh menyatakan penyesalan kita kepada orang itu.
So depending on the situation, we may want to call the other person, or we may think that writing a letter is the best thing to do.
Ya, tergantung kondisinya, Anda mungkin mau telepon atau mungkin menulis surat.
Okay. When we do that, we have to do it without any expectations. Yeah.
Jika Anda meminta maaf, lakukan tanpa harapan.
Yeah, because we don't really know how the other person's going to respond, do we?
Kita nggak tahu ya, orang itu nanti tanggapannya apa.
Yeah. It would be nice if they wanted to forgive and to reconcile, because that would bring about happiness in them and in us, but we can't control them and make them want to do that.
Ya, menyenangkan ketika mereka memaafkan dan kita bahagia, tapi kan kita nggak bisa kendalikan.
Okay. But what's important is that from our side, we want to clarify things and set things right.
Ya, tapi dari sisi kita, ya, kita mau melakukan hal yang benar-benar dan mengucapkan kata-kata yang benar.
Okay. The other person may not want to see us. That's okay.
Orang itu tidak mau jumpa kita, tidak masalah.
Okay, but we want to express our feelings.
Tapi kita mau mengungkapkan perasaan kita.
Yeah, so we have to find a skillful way of doing it that won't harm the other person anymore. Because if the other person's still very sensitive and very hurt, you know, we need to give them some space.
Ya, jadi kita harus hati-hati karena orang itu masih sakit karena kita berikan mereka kesempatan ruang untuk berperasaan dan perbuatan kita nanti meminta maaf itu hati-hati, jangan sampai malah menyakitkan kembali.
Yeah. Sometimes we may apologize, the other person may scold us when we do. That's okay.
Kadang-kadang kita minta maaf, tapi malah dimarahi, nggak apa-apa.
That doesn't matter. The important point is what we're doing.
Nggak apa-apa, karena yang penting itu perbuatan kita, meminta maaf kita.
I had an interesting situation happen a few months ago. Many years ago, I was living in a community with some other people, and there was one person, she and I didn't get along very well. We never had any yelling and screaming fights, but we just didn't like each other very much.
Dulu ya, saya punya pengalaman tinggal di sebuah komunitas dan ada seseorang yang kami memang sih tidak marah-marahan, tidak kesal-kesalan ya, maki-maki enggak, tapi kami saling tidak menyukai satu sama lain.
And over the years, you know, the situation had changed, and she now, due to her job, was contacting me about something.
Ya, bertahun-tahun berlalu dan karena satu pekerjaan orang tersebut, ya, perempuan ini menghubungi saya.
Yeah. So we talked about what that business, that, you know, thing was, that issue. And then at the bottom of the email I said, you know, I feel really sad about kind of my behavior towards you all those years ago when we lived in the community.
She wrote to you.
I wrote to
Oh,
her.
you wrote to her.
Oke, jadi akhirnya mereka berkomunikasi berbalas email dan di bawahnya Fernando menulis saya menyesal ya, atas hubungan kita dulu, ya, dulu kondisinya saya menyesali hubungan kita waktu itu.
Yeah, it was just one sentence, but I had no idea how she was going to respond.
Cuma satu kalimat, cuma saya tidak tahu tanggapan mereka itu nanti.
But I was very delighted when she wrote back and she said, I also feel badly about my behavior towards you.
Dan beliau terima balasan emailnya dan di bawahnya juga tulis, perempuan itu tulis, saya merasa tidak enak hati atas perilaku buruk saya kepada kamu ini.
Yeah. And so then I wrote back and I said, it's really good that we both practice the Dharma and we can see that the Dharma works.
Saya tulis balik ya, bagus bahwa kita berpraktik Dharma dan Dharma itu berhasil ya.
Yeah. And so now I don't know, I mean, because we know many people in common. I may see her again, and I have no concern if that happens.
Ya, dan karena kita punya banyak teman, dan ketika saya ketemu dia lagi, saya sudah tidak punya rasa ya, menyesal itu karena kita sudah berbanyak.
There's another person I know who got really furious at me. I was not mad at her, but she just projected a lot of stuff and was very mad at me and doesn't talk to me.
Ada juga orang lain, seorang wanita yang kesal sekali sama saya, marah sama saya, dan tidak mau berbicara kepada saya.
Yeah, what can I do? I can't do anything.
Saya bisa ngapain? Nggak bisa ngapa-ngapain juga.
But I've made up my mind, you know, because again, you know, we know many people in common, that if sometime I meet her, I am going to be friendly.
pikiran saya, ya, suatu hari jika saya bertemu dia, saya akan bersikap ramah.
Yeah, and no matter how she reacts towards me, from my side, I'm going to be friendly. So I've made that determination.
Apapun tanggapan dia, ya, saya bertekad bahwa saya tetap akan menjadi ramah.
Okay? Because we can't control what other people feel, can we?
Kita nggak bisa kan mengendalikan perasaan orang lain.
Yeah, the important thing is that we take responsibility for our own behavior and our own emotions.
Yang penting adalah kita yang bertanggung jawab atas perilaku kita sendiri.
Yeah. And stop blaming other people.
Dan berhenti menyalahkan orang lain.
Yeah. Because as long as there's the thought in my mind, oh, I have negative feelings towards you because it's your fault because you did this and this and this and this and this. And I take out I have my whole computer file of everything. I've kept good track of everything that person's done, and that computer file in my mind never gets deleted. It's like, I don't know, 150 million megs. It's so big, the whole list of everything that person did wrong. Yeah, I have to erase that file. Yeah, can't take it out.
Kita sering berpikir, saya begini karena kamu, ya. Dan di dalam berkas komputer kita punya banyak sekali bergiga-giga. Kamu dulu ngapain-ngapain aja, ya. Komputernya ada di sini, dan saya tidak akan pernah hapus. Semua itu ingat dengan baik.
Okay, because you know how it is with somebody that we know very well. Yeah, we keep very good tabs of all the things they did that we don't like.
Karena banyak orang yang kita dekat, kita tahu, kita ingat hal yang dia lakukan, dan kita nggak suka.
Yeah, so that then when we have a fight, we have more ammunition to fire at them.
Jadi waktu kita bertengkar, kita punya stok senjata, pelurunya banyak untuk kita keluarin.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it? This is the way it is in families.
Betul nggak? Di keluarga gitu ya.
Yeah. Okay, so finally things explode, and then it's like, 5 years ago you did this, 10 years ago you did this, 15 years ago you did this.
Akhirnya, ketika pertempuran yang terjadi, pelurunya dulu 5 tahun lalu, 10 tahun lalu, 15 tahun lalu kamu.
Yeah, and when we were 5 years old, you threw sand at me.
Waktu 5 tahun, waktu kita 5 tahun, kamu tuh lemparin pasir ke muka saya.
And we just stockpile all this hurt, and for what use? For what purpose?
Dan kita semua simpan rasa sakit ini. Buat apa?
Yeah.
Apa gunanya?
Really stupid. We human beings sometimes are so stupid. Yeah, don't you think? Yeah. We want to be happy, and we behave in the exact way that brings about unhappiness.
Kita katanya mau bahagia, tapi perilaku kita persis membawa kita tidak bahagia.
We all say, I want to be happy, and then we go and create the causes for unhappiness.
Kita semua bilang, saya mau bahagia, tapi kita ciptakan semua sebab penderitaan.
Then you wonder why Kuan Yin cries.
Lalu Anda bingung, kok Kuan Yin nangis?
Yeah, Kuan Yin has to look at how stupid we are.
Kenapa? Karena Kuan Yin itu harus melihat kita itu goblok banget.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they're trying so hard to lead us to awakening.
Dan kalau kita sadar, para Buddha dan para Bodhisattva berusaha keras mendidik kita menuju kebenaran.
And we keep behaving the opposite way.
Tapi perilaku kita malah sebaliknya terus-menerus.
Yeah, they really need great fortitude, great patience with us, don't they?
Para makhluk halus ini benar-benar harus sabar luar biasa ya kepada kita.
It really shows how compassionate they are, that they don't give up on us.
Dan mereka sungguh-sungguh menunjukkan kasih sayangnya. Mereka tidak meninggalkan kita.
Yeah. They don't say, oh, I've been trying to lead you to enlightenment for the last 15 million eons. And all you do is do one negativity after the other. Phew, forget you. I'm going to the Pure Land. Goodbye.
Saya sudah berusaha untuk kamu 15 miliar tahun ke depan, dan kamu tetap saja melakukan hal yang sebaliknya. Bye-bye, saya mau ke tanah suci aja.
Yeah, so don't you think we should try and be a little bit more cooperative if the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are trying to help us?
Jadi, bukankah kita harus sedikit lebih bekerja sama dengan para Buddha dan Bodhisattva yang berusaha menolong kita?
That maybe we should try and follow their advice?
Kita harus berusaha menjalani nasihat-nasihatnya.
Take their advice to heart?
Kita ikuti, kita simpan dalam hati, ikuti.
Okay. So, we have a little bit of time for some questions and comments.
Okay.
Tadi dikatakan untuk mengatasi kemarahan itu harus ada rekonsiliasi dengan memaafkan. Biasanya terjadi kalau kita rekonsiliasi justru masing-masing akan mempertahankan komunikasinya dan itu akan berat. Yang kedua, satu lagi, kalau gimana caranya mengatasi dengan orang yang membuat kita kesal, tapi itu terus saya panik gitu. Yang contohnya itu kan beda waktu dan beda tempat gitu.
When we are trying to reconcile, sometimes both sides they depend on they don't want to let go their arguments. That's the first question, how to deal with that, and how should we do for the person that we meet every day, the person that we have anger on. Gitu ya.
Okay, so the first question is neither side wants to let go of their anger.
Yeah, I mean they defend their own.
Yeah. I want to reconcile, but you have to realize that it was all started because of you.
Gitu. Saya mau berdamai, tapi semuanya gara-gara kamu.
Yeah. So what's the other person supposed to say if we have that attitude?
Jadi kalau sikapnya begitu, kita mau ngomong apa?
Yeah. We have to put aside our hurt.
Kita singkirkan rasa sakit kita.
Yeah. And instead of carrying the past with us and constantly thinking about the past, let's think about the future and the kind of relationship we would like to have with this person.
Daripada kita bawa terus masa lalunya, mari kita pikirkan masa depan, hubungan kita di masa depan itu seperti apa.
Yeah. Because if we just go over the past, the person did something to us once, every day we remember it, we do it to ourselves again.
Karena orang itu lawan kita cuma sekali di masa lalu kita ingat terus. Akhirnya kita melakukannya berulang-ulang kepada diri kita sendiri.
Okay? We have to put it down. That person, whatever they did, they were suffering when they did it, and they were confused about what was going to cause them happiness.
Dan kita lupain, karena orang itu ketika menyakiti kita, mereka sebenarnya tidak tahu, dan mereka juga menderita karena telah menyebabkan kesusahan buat hidup kita.
Yeah, we know what they did was inappropriate, but we don't need to rub it in.
Kita tahu bahwa itu salah, tapi kita tidak perlu kerja terus. So my understanding is, sorry to interrupt. I mean,
Okay.
so if both sides
Yeah.
they don't want, they defend their own argument, so it's very hard to reconcile.
Right, yes, yeah. But it's only going to start to shift if you change.
Jadi
That's
kalau
what I'm getting at.
dua belah pihak sama-sama ngotot, nggak akan ada yang bisa terjadi, kecuali di satu pihak atau kita yang mulai berubah.
Maksudnya kita tidak memaafkan orang itu untuk melakukan sesuatu terhadap kita, tapi dia sama terus sekali dan selalu melakukan itu membuat kita apakah dengan cara menganggap dia tidak ada bisa mengatasi masalah itu?
Coba ulang, saya menangkapnya agak. So, actually we forgive this person, but we meet him or her every day, and she or he been doing the same thing repeatedly. So, should we just think that he or she doesn't exist?
What do you think?
Dia nggak ada kan? Nah, oke. Menurut Anda?
Jadi saya menganggap bahwa dulu kan kita nggak pernah ketemu dengan dia, walaupun kita sering ketemu setiap hari. Jadi daripada kita asal dengan perilaku dia itu belum kita sudah memaafkan. Akhirnya saya menganggap bahwa orang itu bisa nggak pernah kenal dan nggak ada dia gitu. Dengan kondisi dia perlu tetap tidak ada kesalahan kita dan saya menganggap nggak ada. Dan itu mungkin akan membuat saya lebih bahagia karena saya tidak berpikir negatif tentang dia gitu.
So if I think like that, if I think she or he doesn't exist, actually it quite helped me to be happy. Is it correct to do that?
It really helps you to think that somebody else doesn't exist?
At least in her life, because she has to meet him or her every day.
So how can you meet somebody? You mean I meet her every day, and every time I see her, I think she doesn't exist.
Ketemunya fisik ya? Ya, dan kamu, sorry Cici, menganggap orang itu tidak ada ya? Benar-benar contohin apa? Ya, ketemu dia ada lalu dianggap tidak ada. Lalu gimana? Bisa?
Ya selama ini bisa sih, jadi apapun yang dilakukan, berapapun bentuknya membuat kita menjadi kesal karena kita menganggap yang ada, jadi kita abaikan, dan kita happy itu apa yang kita lakukan.
So far she's been doing that. So if that person make things that upset me a bit, upset her, upset me, I would think that actually what she doesn't exist. She's not in my life.
Oh, okay. Then she's not asking me a question, so I don't really have anything to respond to that.
Jadi itu maksud vulnerable itu kan bukan Cici tidak bertanya ya, cuma mengklarifikasi ya, cuma menjelaskan. Jadi dia tidak perlu memberi jawaban.
Enggak, maksudnya bisa nggak gitu dengan cara mengatasi orang itu dan mengalami yang ada gitu.
Is that a possible way to end our anger by thinking that the person doesn't exist?
That's something you have to investigate. I can't tell you that.
Karena pemerlu tidak lakukan, maka Cici yang diminta untuk merenunginya, menyelidikinya. Bisa nggak? Ditanya balik. Ya.
Yeah.
Boleh pindah ke yang lain? Ya, makasih ya. Pertanyaannya bagus banget. Actually, I think I said that in fact it is a good question.
You what?
I think it's a good question.
Yeah.
To raise. Yang lain silakan. Namo boleh. Namaste.
Saya mau datang. Saya ada masalah. Saya kalau dalam satu, saya naik motor pernah nabrak orang. Tentunya tidak sengaja. Tapi anak ini ya sampai membenci pada saya. Padahal masalah itu sudah selesaikan. Dia baru mengacara segala macam ya. Nah, waktu itu kejadian saya tidak melakukan ini, tapi dia mengatakan anaknya, saya itu sudah nabrak mau melarikan diri gitu. Sampai orang tuanya beberapa tahun meninggal gara-gara saya. Sampai sekarang dia membicarakan masalah itu kepada saya. Nah, saya menanyakan apa itu saya takutnya ya, karena menabrak itu rasa itu suatu karma tentunya bagi saya. Nah, saya takut kelanjutan apa ini. Satu, kedua, saya mau maafkan, tapi dia itu berbicara di luar menjelekan saya terus.
Terus saya mesti ngapain gitu ya?
Nah,
Terima kasih. So one time he had an accident, so he hit someone accidentally, and the son of the person he hit actually was very furious, so he went to the lawyer and take it to the law. It happened in 1981. So actually he had forgiven he had forgot the situation. And two question is, He was worried about the law of karma, what is going to happen to him because of the accident. Secondly, because the son of the person that he accidentally hit always talk about this, always talk about bad about him about the accident. So what should he want to say?
If the accident was an accident and you didn't do it deliberately, you know, and you weren't, it was a car accident?
Motorcycle.
Yeah, and you weren't drinking or, you know, careless in some way, then I don't think there's, you know, much negative karma because you didn't have any intention to harm the person.
Karena kalau dilakukannya tidak punya niat, kecelakaan itu terjadi karena tidak niat. Dan juga karena kita tidak ceroboh ya. Misalnya kita bawa motornya itu sambil mabuk, maka sebenarnya tidak ada niat, maka tidak ada karma yang terjadi. Tidak ada karma negatif yang terjadi.
Yeah. If you were drinking and then were driving and you just didn't care, oh, I'm drunk, it doesn't matter, and then hurt somebody, then it's a different matter. Then there's definitely some karma involved.
Kecuali kita mabuk, kita bawa mobil sambil mabuk dan tidak peduli tentang keadaan, maka sesungguhnya kita menciptakan karma atau karma buruk.
Yeah. And in terms of the son, you know, speaking badly about you, just think that he's helping you to purify your negative karma.
Dan untuk anak itu yang selalu ngomongin koko, anggap aja dia membantu membersihkan karma-karma buruk.
Yeah. In other words, just whatever, you know, he is doing that's uncomfortable for you, it's just think it's a result of my own negative karma. Now that karma is getting purified, it won't ripen, I won't suffer because of it.
Ya, apapun omongan anak itu yang buruk-buruk, anggap aja gini, anak itu telah membantu karma-karma buruk saya jadi makan, karma-karma buruk saya jadi berbuah. Jadi saya tidak perlu mengambil lagi nanti. Ya.
Yeah. And do the meditation on loving kindness for that person.
Dan bermeditasi cinta kasih untuk anak itu.
Pertanyaan tadi pertama yang kata bagus sekali. Kita sering bertemu dengan situasi seperti itu ya dalam kehidupan kita sehari-hari. Bagaimana kalau ya kita sekarang balik dianggap sebagai orang yang tidak ada, dianggap sebagai orang yang tidak eksis dan selalu diperlakukan seperti itu. Bagaimana dari pandangan baiknya kita melakukan hal yang seperti itu?
Okay. The question still relates to the first question from the lady. So if the lady or she thinks that the other person doesn't exist, so her question is, what would we do? How do we react if we are the person that other people think we don't exist?
I think you just behave normally and you be friendly. What can you do? Yeah? If that person wants to ignore you, that's their trip.
Kalau mereka mau mengacukan Anda itu,
Yeah? But you can be friendly, you can be normal.
Anda bisa tetap baik, bersahabat,